One of the more interesting elements that Somali and the Forest Spirit has going for it is how you can't totally predict where any given episode is going to go. Last week we were introduced to witches, and while witches aren't the most original concept, the way they were portraying them, not with the traditional cauldron and boiling children alive and doing their evil laughs and things like that, they were literally just running a society that was selling goods and services using information from all the literature that they've collected. And pretty much they just had a bitching library. That's pretty much the witches that we got introduced to. And when you hear about the head honcho, the head librarian, that can go, I think, one of two ways. Either totally evil, totally corrupt, or it's going to be pretty natural, pretty easy to handle. But even though we had a very peaceful librarian, I think the idea that the book that we were searching for ended up being written by the dying librarian who was able to tell our characters the story before her ultimate passing. That wasn't predictable. I really don't think so. I think most of us were probably latched on to either evil witch or kind witch, not even taking into consideration that the book that we've been searching for very well could still be taught to us by the person who wrote it and would show us a side of humanity that once again will make us feel uncomfortable. And I thought it was amazing that this wasn't a situation where we felt like, okay, here we go again. Somali's identity is revealed. We're going to have something that's going to be very, very drama bait, or something that's going to, play with our emotions. Immediately, witches just did not care. Like, they literally admit when Somali says, is that going to be like me? There's no hostility there. I'm really happy about that. I'm glad they're trying new things throughout each episode. And the story that they told us in this week's episode definitely was a thinker. I mean, the way Somali and the Forest Spirit has been handling humanity in general, I think is very realistic. Humans, for as creative as we are very hostile. We challenge anything that is different to us. And the only reason animals in general aren't completely extinct is because they can't totally oppose us, because we have thumbs and species like dolphins don't. So they're never going to reach the point of human creativity because they don't have the ability to create things like a human does. I mean, look at how we treat our own species. The smallest of differences will have us lash out. So imagine if there was someone floating on a broomstick, or we had a talking dragon. Immediately, our gut reaction, myself included, if there was a talking dragon, I would be, holy shit, we gotta put that out, because that's just how we're programmed. We're assholes. I totally admit to that. But maybe someone floating on a broom, you're a little less likely to cut off the head, but a giant talking beast, most humans would want to lash out against that. And the way they've been portraying humans has been a really solid foundation that the show's been built off of, because literally we have a golem walking with a seemingly only child, no more humans left in sight. We're just trying to kind of have that fool's dream that we'll find humanity somewhere. And I think, honestly, based on the story, there probably is a set location of humans and descendants based on the story in question, unless they were extinct someday. I mean, granted, the witch did say that her story was the reason that it drove humanity to extinction because of how it was portrayed. But still, it does feel to me like there definitely is a good chance that Somali could find more humans, but we have to ask ourselves, do we really want her to be raised by people who will fear anything that's different? I mean, the only reason that village basically were okay with that golem because they viewed it as a god, which once again is something humans are fine with. Humans, in terms of like differences, there are so many things we lash out against, but they'll put blind faith into something more powerful than themselves as long as it gives them goods and riches, or they feel like it will. So it's interesting how they had such a mirror with a witch and a golem, and then of course we have Somali and our golem, and how it almost represented that this episode, how a majority of the humans are going to lash out and fight against something that's different, and because of their history, as they call the grotesque, these creatures that are different than them, they'll do the same to them because it just feels like there's a conflict that won't stop. And the fact that there was a single character, a single little child who decided to change their mind, who was raised to say things that aren't human we push back against, but because of the life that she saved, decided to push back and say, you know what, that's not okay. And who knows, maybe that could lead back into the ending when they eventually find this village. What if that character's child or descendant or whatever is going to be the one to raise Somali or something, and because of that kind deed of a witch, she actually decided to change her opinion on what they would call grotesque. Little aspects like that are what really make a series like Somali and the Forest Spirit really thrive in the long run, rather than just saying, all humans bad, all grotesque good, or all grotesque bad, all humans good. They're really just saying the intermixing it's not going to work out because we as a society we just do not like things that could oppose us and make us feel weaker than we are. I mean, it's true. If we ever came into contact with aliens, you know damn well we're shooting that down or going to attempt it. There's that fear we have. And rather than it just feeling like a forced message or things like that, they're literally just explaining if humans really were in contact with a species that was totally different than us, that could talk and have intelligence to the same level as us, what would happen? And we're seeing what would happen. It's interesting. It's fascinating to watch that story play out with the knowledge of what humans can be in this world and how a little witch is just trying her best to survive, and a golem basically will play the part and you say, oh yes, only humans are good, but he knows like, shit, if I say the wrong thing, maybe I'll get my head cut off or something. Just because they view him as a god now, there's a very strong chance that had he said, oh, this witch is good, he would have been tossed off that cliff alongside her. So it's quite interesting, but I mean, the fact that they didn't go a completely predictable route with this story, I honestly thought the story would be something like a poem or just something very short and to the point, maybe a history book. I wasn't expecting a full-on flashback where we got such an amazing, just bits of content that mirrored our central crew, but also showed us once again just why things fell apart with humans in general. And it's going to be interesting, I have to say, to see if they really do make it there before the season ends, or, you know, if we get a second season or something like that. It's going to be quite fascinating to see what's going to happen. Is that golem still around? Because golems live a decent amount of time. How far was that golem into its life cycle? Is there another golem that's going to take its place? And what if there's a way to extend Golem's life that we just don't know about? Maybe this Golem's been living for 1,000 years, right? There's always that potential, and you always start questioning and piecing things together, making your own theories and predictions, hoping that the Golem and Somali could stay together forever, but you also know that we need to, at the very least, find her a decent home, and even if it's, well, not the most pleasant of people that are going to just hurt and hunt anyone that's different, at the very least she is human totally, so she herself wouldn't be hurt, but on her mental state she easily could if she's raised in the wrong way. The first little chunk of the episode before we actually got to the story time I thought was quite fun, especially because it wasn't an easy walk in the park. I mean, the fact that almost immediately the security alarms go off and you see basically they're all preparing for war and they're just grabbing their sticks. I just thought it was really cute and adorable, and the way they detailed certain shots, like when they kind of plummeted into the water, I thought they did a great job of making scenes like that just blurry and as if you're actually diving into the water with them. It's those little details that aren't totally important, but at the same time, you just look at how much attention they're putting into those basic things like crashing into water or just sprinting and things like that. It's really cute and adorable, and also just really realistic at multiple points throughout it. And the fact that this witch, I mean, sure, you can definitely say that's very convenient for anime, that the fact that got the story before her life ended, but I mean, this witch was clearly going on her last few days anyway, so I'm perfectly fine with it being, you know, they finally had that heart-to-heart and she was very much fine with humans, and I think her passing will probably teach a lot of the other witches who may have their own opinions on humans to say, oh, well, maybe there is different ways to look at things, because I'm sure not all witches are totally fine with humans. I mean, the fact that there was definitely some pushing back in some ways I think does show that, but it's going to be interesting to see who will take her place and just what's going to happen with these two characters. Are they going to try to travel to the end of the world? Or is this story going to push the golem away? You just really don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe she could stay in the witch's library and just read books for all her days and that'd be okay. There's definitely a lot of room for it, but I think this was a beautiful and dramatic episode that didn't feel like a forced message, but rather, once again, just showing what if humans had contact with a species very similar to us, but just on a different visual level. What would happen, and honestly I think they're doing a great job at showing us what realistically would happen. And that's something that could easily fall flat on its face, feel very generic or forced or cliche, but I think Somali and the Forest Spirit is doing such a remarkable job that it's showing things in such a believable way that even when we look at such supernatural beings, we still feel like this is exactly how humans and humanity would probably either fail or succeed at pushing back what they view as a threat and being different than themselves. It's quite interesting. I mean, Somali and the Forest Spirit has been a hit every single week. It's no surprise that we're still having great episodes after great episodes. But what is surprising is that even after 2/3 of the way through its first season, maybe its only season, depending on if it gets more or not, it's still finding new ways to shake up the formula, and every time we meet a new character, it feels like whether there's conflict or no conflict, it's always different in a completely unique way, and that's something not a lot of series will get right, especially one that, though does have an end goal, is episodic by design. New location, new sets of characters, new arcs at hand, but it doesn't feel comparable, whether we're at a restaurant, whether we're at just a doctor's office, whether we're at a library full of witches. There's a new idea for each of these adventures, and it's going to be interesting to see what the knowledge that we've learned will do for these characters, but as the witch said, I mean, she's not going to be like them. She doesn't fear the things that are different, and not all humans do fear things that are different, but the vast majority of us, we do. That's why there's war, that's why there's conflict, why there's all the bullshit of the world, and it's going to be interesting to see what Somali will represent in this world, especially if there's more than just a couple of humans left in existence. Overall, this was a phenomenal episode, honestly. I thought it was emotionally gripping, it had a couple of cute moments, but most importantly, it taught us a lot about this world and just has so much potential now going forward in the future. But as always, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Your favorite moment? What do you think of that story in general? Do let me know your feelings down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.